The first one we talked about was softness. We talked how to be soft with the people around us and the children around us. And then we started our class with the Sheikh saying that in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala praises the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in many places. He says, لَقَدْ جَاءَكُمْ رَسُولٌ مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ عَزِيزٌ عَلَيْهِ مَا عَنِتُّمْ حَرِيصٌ عَلَيْكُمْ بِالْمُؤْمِنِينَ رَءُوفٌ رَحِيمٌ فإن تولوا فقل حسبي الله لا إله إلا هو عليه توكلت وهو رب العرش العظيم. He says that you are of Ra'uf and of Rahim, you create mercy and you forgive people. And then in another place he says, Nun wal qalami wa ma yasturun ما أنت بنعمة ربك بمجنون وإن لك لأجرا غير ممنون. That you create mercy. And then the first point we mentioned about softness is that whenever a man came to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he asked whenever he needed something, he came and asked the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam would give him whatever he wanted or help him with whatever he needed. And the second point we mentioned is that one day, Anas radiallahu anh, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam servant, he thought, what would the Prophet do to me if he was a servant, right? So he thought, what would the Prophet do to me if I didn't obey him? So one day he didn't, the Prophet told him to do something and he didn't do it. He said, I swear I wouldn't do it. This was in his tongue, but in his heart, intentionally, he would want to do it. So he went and he started playing with some kids. And then the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam came and he started smiling at him. He told him, he started calling him a nickname. Instead of calling him Anas, he called him Unais. And he said, oh Unais, go back to where I told you to. And then Anas radiallahu anh he said okay, and went back and started doing the work. And then the second point we mentioned about is humbleness. We talked about how humble the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was, and we talked about when it was time for prayer, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam would switch himself to another man and he would go and pray his salah. And whenever anyone wanted anything for him, he would give it to them straight away. And number 3, we talked about patience, and we talked about how to be patient with other people. And then we talked about a story where there were some kids one day. They started throwing rocks at the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam to the extent that he started bleeding. So then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the angel mountain and Jibreel alayhi salam, and then the angel mountain asked the Prophet, should I crush these kids with the 2 mountains? And then Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, no, it's fine. He said, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. He was patient even though the kids were really throwing rocks at him and he was bleeding. And then we talked about some other examples, how soft the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to be with the kids of the Ansar. He used to go, he was from the Muhajirin, right? So the Muhajirin were his people, and then the Ansar were a different tribe in Medina. So he would go and visit the tribe in Medina, Al-Ansar, and he used to go and make salam to the kids. And then whenever they were girls that were 6 and 7, he would go and walk with them and go wherever they want. And then for a better example, we looked at the President of the United States or someone who is higher went and asked, a girl went and asked him to walk her and take her wherever she wants. It's really where the president would rather say no. Then after that, we talked in humbleness. We talked about like the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He would go and visit the people who were sick, and then the closest, as we know, the closest Sahaba to the Prophet was Abu Bakr radiallahu anh. So, example, if Abu Bakr radiallahu anh's son was like sick, he would go visit. This is normal because like this is the closest companion to his heart. But even he used to go even to the janitors and go visit them frequently so that and make sure everything is okay. Jazakallah khair.